Can you see that, Steve?
Can everyone see this? Yeah.
Later, Howard Snitzer of Goodhue, Minnesota woke up in the ICU at Mayo Clinic. Snitzer learned he had suffered a massive heart attack outside of Don's Foods in Goodhue. He also learned that first responders had performed CPR on him for more than an hour and a half.
You know, to go so long into CPR and resuscitating someone is, you know, I think what the previous record was like 45 minutes, and they worked 96.
Al Lodermeyer, who owns the garage just across the street from where Snitzer collapsed, was one of the first people to start CPR, and he, along with about 20 others, kept going for that 96 minutes at the urging of a Mayo Clinic paramedic.
Yeah, until he gives up or until they say, you know, enough is enough, we just keep rolling, and it was fortunate we had a lot of help.
Less than 50 days after his heart attack, Snitzer is home and doing just fine. Amazing, considering the fact his heart wasn't working and he had no pulse for an hour and 36 minutes.
It seemed like there was nothing to work on, really, but they just kept doing it and doing it and doing it, and, you know, it's like you're not going to die on my watch.
And Snitzer has everyone from Lodermeyer to the Mayo Clinic paramedics to thank, although thanks doesn't even begin to sum it up.
I mean, I love them. I love those people. I mean, what can I say, you know? I mean,
Synergy. Habit 6. Definition of synergy is that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Somehow that 1 plus 1 does not equal 2, but that 1 plus 1 could equal 3, possibly 4, maybe even more. Synergy is exciting. Creativity is exciting. It's phenomenal what openness and communication can produce. The possibilities of truly significant gain, of significant improvement, are so real that it's worth the risk such openness entails. One of the examples that the author uses to demonstrate synergy is that he says that if you plant 2 plants together next to each other, the roots will grow together and complement each other, and the soil will become more rich, and the plants will grow better than if they were to be planted separately. And that's a really good demonstration as to what synergy is. If 2 people can apply the best of their intentions together somehow through creativity and open-mindedness and things like that, that better things can come out of it. And one of the charts that he uses is called the levels of communication chart. On one side you have trust, high trust, low trust, and cooperation. When both of them are low, you get defensive communication, which is either a win-lose or a lose-win, which we talked about that last time. Somewhere in the middle, if the trust is okay and the cooperation okay, is then you have a respectful, which is a compromise. Both parties are not completely giving their best, like both are compromising in some way. That way, when you compromise, it's not exactly the best and the 100% of both people. It's more of an 80-80 on each side. And then when the trust is high and the cooperation is high, then that's a complete synergistic level of communication, which is a win-win.
Alright, so do you guys have any questions about the chart?
I did a good job explaining it, but what you guys talk about now?
It's defensive, respectful, and
Defensive,
synergistic.
respectful, and synergistic.
Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about synergy in the classroom. When Covey describes in a novel about an experience he has when one of his students is very open and genuine and shares a story that's very personal to himself, and because of that, that sharing that student gave, it seemed to open up the floor for more students to feel like they can share in class. And it opened up really good opportunities for them to be synergistic and to bounce ideas off each other and to gain new creativities that wouldn't necessarily have been there if they hadn't have had that original genuine need to share or ability to be open with each other. So let's talk about in our classroom, maybe. What are some ways that you guys see synergy in our classroom?
We're willing to participate in any activity that everybody presents.
Okay, so let's talk about some ways it'd be inverse. So if we weren't so open and willing to share with each other and to give, like a devotion at the beginning of the class where it's very kind of a personal topic, how might that change the way that you present what you want to present, or like the types of wording you use, or maybe the types of just the types of things that you're going to say as far as how they relate personally to you?
I think you never want to be the first person to do something different.
Yeah.
Like you never want to be the first person that changes it up, or gets a little too open because you don't know how everybody else is going to take it. But that's a bold move that sometimes someone in the classroom needs to take.
Right. So the main thing is just being comfortable, and it's important for you guys all to be comfortable with each other and in the learning environment. And so we found that by using this chart and the other learning styles and habits that Covey talks about, they promote synergistic relationships and synergistic classroom activity. Let's talk about synergy in business. So Covey talks about when he goes on a team retreat kind of thing, where they all went up to the mountains and they all collaborated. They did a lot of group building activities, and because of their openness and because of their willingness to share with each other, they were able to create this mission statement that really encompassed, the goals of all of the employees, and they were able to be very happy and collectively happy about the end product that they had. Another thing that he talks about is when they're mediating alternative proposals, and he was in the middle of explaining or trying to compromise between one side or two sides of an argument, and he found synergy in that because the two sides were able to work together and understand each other's points of views, they were to come out with, instead of a more like in the middle range compromise, like where they respect each other, but they're still not getting everything that they want out of the scenario as best as they possibly can. Whereas in the synergistic relationship, they're able to not only understand each other and what their needs are, but they're also able to combine it and come up with something really good that both sides are happy with, both sides can use efficiently and effectively. So that's the important part of the win-win scenario and striving for two sides that are win-win. And then another thing that he talks about is when they created the atomic bomb, they brought together the most highly touted individuals in the world, and the first thing that they did was an experiment, or the high emotional bank account experiment, where they just talked about their interests, their hopes, their goals, their concerns, and all these paradigms that encompass what they believe. And because they were able to understand what what each other believes, and they were a more unified body, they were able to be more closely knit, more open with each other, more creative, and therefore more synergistic. I think there's supposed to be little arrows. I think they're back. Okay, and then for synergy in relationships, he talks about how man and woman synergize when they bring a child into the world. And he also talks about how he draws up a scenario where there's a husband and wife, and the husband and wife have a scenario where they have a fishing trip planned for their kids, and they've spent a lot of money putting into this fishing trip, like for poles and for lessons and teaching their boys how to go fishing. And then all of a sudden, right before they're about to go on the trip, the wife finds out that her mother is dying of an illness or something. And because of this dying, obviously, the wife, instead of the fishing trip, now wants to go see her dying mother. And what Covey talks about is in a defensive relationship between man and woman, they would be more entitled to just be, or to see their side and then not see the other person's side. So the man might say, you know, we spent all this money on the fishing trip, we got to go on this trip, even if, you know, your mother dying is, she's still going to be there when we come back, like, and it wasn't a big deal to him. Whereas if he thought maybe more synergistically, thinking about the mother and the husband and the kid's best benefit, they might have thought, okay, well maybe we should just move the fishing trip maybe somewhere close to where your mother lives, so that you can see your mother and we can go fishing still. So it's just that type of thinking, the new creativity that you got to have that creates the synergistic relationship.
And as important it is to recognize synergy and how to create effective synergy, it's also important to recognize negative synergy and ways that negative synergy can affect positive synergy. Some examples of negative synergy are people second-guessing, rivalries within the relationship or workplace or wherever synergy is trying to take place, interpersonal conflicts. I'll try to go slower so everyone can write it down. And confessing other people's sins. And the way he tries to illustrate this is he says that it's like driving a car with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. He says that a way that most people try to fix this problem of negative synergy is by just applying more gas. And that does not remove negative synergy, it still inhibits positive synergy. And lastly, it's important to recognize that synergy is based on the first 5 habits: being proactive, beginning with the end in mind, putting first things first, thinking win-win, and seeking first to understand. All of those are basic building blocks to come to this synergizing 6th habit, because those first 5 blocks create a complete independent person before trying to synergize with another person.
So you guys all catch that last blank. The last blank is, synergy is the ultimate result of mastery of the first 5 habits. So, that said, any questions?
Going back to the video, how did that represent synergy? 24 people doing CPR on one person for 96 minutes, sorry. Any ideas?
They had to work together and like go in shifts and
And then, obviously, you guys can see how one person obviously would not have been able to do that. But because we had several people synergizing and continuing to perform this wonderful task to save this man, that's kind of how we wanted to relate the video.
Any questions?
Any questions, concerns, problems?
I've got a question. What would be an example of confessing other people's sins?
I think maybe when you hear gossip or like hear rumors or some stuff that like you know about somebody that not everyone else knows, and you know in your heart that you want to bring out, or I like to think that I try to bring out the best in people, but that's not always what happens. So sometimes, you know, to get your edge or whatever, you'll confess other people's sins in order to bring them down and put you on a higher level, and even just make yourself feel better than them.
Go ahead, Garrison. You going to say something?
Oh, no, it's okay.
Go ahead, Greg.
It was kind of like what you were saying. So,
Okay.
yeah.